to another edition of the Loose Cannons podcast. I am your host, Sammer, and I'm chilling with my boy Christian and a special guest today in 12-year NFL veteran tight end, former Buccaneer, more importantly than anything else, Anthony Becht. What is up? Welcome to the show, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, this is great. A lot of guys doing podcasts in the Tampa Bay area. I've gotten a little glimpse of yours in the past, and I'm glad I'm able to join into the fun. I heard you guys like to have a good time, so I was open to it.
Yeah, we have a weird fun time. A weird fun time. Anthony, you're probably the best person to ask a few questions that we really can't ask. Media guys who haven't actually played the sport. So a lot of stuff's happened in the offseason for the Bucs. We signed Tom Brady, the GOAT. We've added Gronk. We've added LaShawn McCoy. The whole defense has returned. All these great things have happened for us. However, something terrible also happened, which is the pandemic. The pandemic, took away from rookie camps. It took away from mini camps, even though it didn't really stop Brady and the offensive guys. But it does hurt, rookies, because they don't get to get their feet wet, especially guys that might need a little bit more molding and coaching up heading into their season, possibly our right tackle. But then the other thing that's occurred is that there are no preseason games, which has never happened in the NFL as far as at least I know, and as far as I've been a fan. So you being a player, can you speak to how important those preseason games are from a rookie standpoint, and possibly how important they are from a veteran standpoint, or if they're not even important at all if you're a vet?
No, that's a good question, because it really is different for the different, tenure you are in your career. So let's just start with the drafted rookies and the undrafted players. So you're talking about trying to, through the months of April, May, June, figure out where you can place these guys. And, are they a viable option or potential option, so that when you go into preseason ball, you can delegate their opportunities, more in particular, the lower draft picks and also the undrafted rookies. Well, you don't have that. A lot of these kids are coming in from systems, whether it be offense or defense, that are just, it's going to be light years different than actually sitting in an NFL room and understanding and learning the system and actually going out on the field, not just learning from notes and trying to, put it into play. And that, you've heard that from Todd Bowles, and, you can teach all this stuff, but they got to go out there and actually do the stuff on the field. So that, number one, is gigantic. Then as you get into that summer camp or leading into the summer camp, the OTAs, you lose another huge opportunity. So those things, again, as far as finding depth on your team, finding the gems, developing guys in a short amount of time, because a lot of guys can take on a lot of information and really speed up the process and almost advance themselves, where maybe coaches sometimes didn't see or foresee players to stick out because of the fact that they had the time and the amount of time in the meeting room and to run and do the things in the offseason had elevated them coming into camp. Now, as you get into camp, the preseason, to me, and again, it's different levels. The depth, the rookie stuff is huge. It's important. You got to know what you got. You got to know the kid can go out there, understand your offense if he's an offensive player, understand your depths of your routes if you're a receiver, alignment, the speed of the game, right? Getting those snaps against real defensive ends that actually you're going to see or play against potentially as you get into the season. But you're not going to be able to see that speed. You can't duplicate the high-end speed in practice, especially now with the limited amount of pads and the limited amount of things you're able to do day to day, because you can't bang on your own guys as much. They change the rules, and they just make it really impossible for you from a practice standpoint to elevate there. Now, to get to the veteran piece, we always hear the veterans like, they don't want to play preseason. They can't wait to get their hot dogs on the sideline, take their pads off, and just do their own thing. I'll be quite honest with you. The 12 or 13 snaps in game one that I got, I was going to try something different. Working on something in the offseason, maybe a little technique in the way I block, the way I come out of a route, or the way I see things in the field. I really try to get the most out of those 12 snaps so that I can see myself doing it. And then I can kind of, do I put it in my toolbox, or do I eliminate it and just move on? And, guys like Tom Brady, who honestly, if he was in New England still, wouldn't really care about preseason, just understands everything, the guys and everything around him. I think he would really want the preseason this year, be able to go out there and run the snaps, be able to get a little timing with the receivers and the tight end. Now, does that mean that they're not going to be able to do that or be able to pick that up soon? No, not at all, because at the end of the day, when you look at this football team and the landscape of the NFL, everybody's on the level playing field, right? So a team like New Orleans obviously has an advantage coming out of the gate because of the familiarity of players, not a lot of turnover and changes. There is going to be a little bit of turnover because when you're talking about the quarterback, he runs the engine. Everything he does and everything he sees is much different than, the receivers catching the ball from Jameis, or the way Jameis moved in the pocket, or how they actually, got the ball and was delivered from him. So those things can only happen in live reps. I will tell you this. Regardless of what happens, Brady's going to be able to diagnose things a lot quicker, probably more quicker than any point in his career coming out of the summer camp, because of the fact that defenses are really not going to be able to do a lot against the Bucs this year. You'll get creative, but you got a huge chance of taking just a stab in the back defensively, because you can't double guys, you can't take somebody away. There's too many weapons on both sides. If they do that correctly and utilize the backs, man, on paper, to me, with Brady at the helm and the decision-making process that he goes through, it's super, super dangerous, because you have to be a little more vanilla on defense because there's so much more to really get on. So to me, that counters what he has to actually learn in the system, and then what he's actually going to see and go against. To me, man, that's a huge advantage for Brady, Bucs, and their offense.
No. Anthony, speaking of all these weapons we have, right? We know the Godwin and Evans and Scooter and OJ, Gronkowski, which has to make you smile as a tight end. That tight end is insane. We have LaShawn McCoy. We have Rojo, which is emerging at, as Bruce is saying, is going to be a 3-down back, hopefully. And we know he can do it on first and second down. A couple hours before we started this podcast, this rumor broke that we're all in, or we're one of the suitors for Fournette. How is that not a spoil of riches? Like, where does Fournette fit in if we sign him, in your opinion? And who's the odd man out? Because I get it. When I saw it, I thought LeGarrette Blount with the Patriots. They had like a three-headed monster there when LeGarrette Blount was there with Brady, and it worked. But how does that work here? And who's the odd man out?
Well, I think it fits because there's no lock on who the guy's going to be. I think obviously Ronald Jones has the upper hand because of the fact that he made a nice jump and leap last year, but the mental aspect, he wasn't able to stay in for all 3 downs. He wasn't able to get through the playbook cleanly throughout the season, therefore taken away from his snaps. I was pretty big throughout the year, like, give the kid more snaps. He needs to take more reps, the majority of the reps, but clearly he wasn't really on top of what he had to know and learn, from my understanding and the people that I talked to. So he's had to have taken a huge step in that department this year, because physically and athletically, he really took a huge leap last year. So I expect him to elevate. If we were to sign Fournette, you know what? Look, that could push a lot of things out. You could potentially, you draft a tailback. Heck, he may become expendable if a guy like Fournette can come in and, lose the diva attitude, come in there and look, man, pissed off, has a little chip on his shoulder and becomes the player that everyone expects him to be. I think a lot of people believe that he may have failed in Jacksonville. I don't really see that. I mean, Jacksonville's not a really good team, right? So, it's not like he was going there and they had this huge passing game and a lot of things complimented him. He was kind of the guy that it started with, and everything else went out there. So, loaded boxes, things of that nature. He comes here, you cannot load the box, because if you load the box, Tom's always, he's going Omaha or whatever that call is going to be, and he's throwing it right over the top. So does he fit in? Absolutely. I think the one thing about this is a business. So you bring him in. BA seems to be a guy that's like, I don't care. Look at the kicking game. I mean, look, man, we'll bring in another kicker. We'll sign a different guy, and we're moving on. It's no big deal. If you ain't making kicks, we're changing it. That applies for all positions on the team. I kind of like that because it creates competition, number one. Guys that want to compete and be good will rise to the top. And the guys that are there that just, look, they're not getting it, bye-bye, right? That's how you get and you move on. BA's not going to be here for 10 more seasons. Brady doesn't have a bunch of years left to play in his game. He's year to year right now, just trying to get through healthy. So does he fit in? Yes. Anybody that can potentially help this team is worth bringing in, and you're going to give him an incentive-laden contract. You're not going to give him a ton of cash. And, you give him something that actually he wants to come in and show off. And I think when Tom Brady's your quarterback, that turns a switch on for a lot of guys, and they become different. And that'll be something I think if they do bring him, you'll see a different cat because of what the demands will be from Brady being his quarterback.
Just so you know, Mr. Becht, there is no competition. Gay is our kicker. He's an unofficial. He's not unofficial. He's an official member of the Loose Cannons podcast.
Oh man,
there is no competition.
He will eliminate the other competitor, just like he eliminated the first competitor. No big deal. Not worried about it. Not worried about it.
I hope he does. I don't want to talk about kickers at all this year. I mean, the last 3-4 seasons, we're talking about kickers, man. I'm wasting my breath on some of these podcasts and shows and interviews. Like, I got to talk about a kicker to start the show off. No way.
No way, man. We don't need to worry about it.
Somebody like Bruce Arians with that attitude, right? That swag and that no risk and no biscuit. He's got to be like, fucking seriously? Like, I'm still thinking about this. We're a week and a half away from kickoff, and I'm thinking about this. Me and Sammer and Stanton, we know where we stand, but BA is clearly thinking about it. It's got to be driving him nuts that it's this close to the kickoff or the opener, and we're still thinking about this.
And, no preseason. So, if there's a couple close games early, which I expect defenses to kind of run the show in the NFL early in the year, close ball games, man, kickers are going to become an important piece. We've seen this over time. How many games have we lost by 2 points, a point where, the kicker could have made a difference? I mean, the kicker sometimes is the ultimate factor of guys actually getting extensions in their jobs and coaches not getting fired. So it's a huge piece, but you never want to talk about it unless it goes through the upright. So hopefully we get some of that.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that Fournette thing before we got on the air with you. And one of I don't dislike Fournette. I actually loved him in college when he was coming in the draft. I was like, man, that'd be great to land that guy. It didn't work out. Now there's a possibility that he'd come in. But my concern has always been, it seems like they're just putting so much emphasis on the offense, and they're just kind of relying too much on a lack of depth on the defensive side. Like the LaShawn McCoy signing and maybe this Fournette signing, like maybe that money could have gone to a guy like A.J. Hawk to come in there and kind of give you a little bit more depth at the outside linebacker position. Spots like that where if any one of our guys go down, we're kind of stuck with some chicken shit behind them. It doesn't really work. And so my thing is, like, why are we emphasizing this? It reminds me a lot of the Eagles when they had Michael Vick and they had LaShawn McCoy and they had Deshaun Jackson, and they were putting together this all-star freaking globetrotter team that everyone was all bought into, and it fucking fell apart. But it kind of reminds me so much of that in the fact that they're just so focused on, let's get Tom as many. I mean, how many times are you going to throw the ball? 80 times? No way. How many times are you even going to possess the ball in an NFL game? Do you think that maybe they're relying a bit too much on some of these guys on defense, especially some of them who are a little bit longer in the tooth now?
You're right. Depth is an issue. I think especially going into this season with guys not being able to train, the same way they normally would do, whether they be at the facility going through the off season fully, you got to worry about that. Now, as far as what they've got, if they're there, you're good. But you know as well as I do, depth is really important. You're only as good as the next guy that pops up, and they can't play every snap. JPP obviously is he's still got a great skill set, but I don't know if he can play every snap like he did in the past. Anthony Nelson obviously coming back is healthy. Is he going to be a guy that they're going to obviously have to lean on more? Losing a Carl Nassib, to me, that's kind of a big deal. He's a nice piece that comes in. He might not be the best pass rusher, but I promise you, he gives you the best effort every single snap. And that does lead to a lot of positive plays on defense, which we saw the last couple of years that he's here. So, I think the one thing I know about Todd Bowles, I know Todd well. I have very high regard for him. We started in the league together when I was a rookie, and he was with the Jets as a DB coach, and I watched him grow and develop. And, I had a couple conversations with him pre-pandemic after the season last year. And, look, he's really not concerned about getting a particular player, maybe a name guy. He just needs a player to go out there in a certain positions. He was in particular talking about safety position when we were speaking. And he says, look, I don't care if it's a rookie. I don't care if it's a 4-year, 5-year, 6-year guy, a 12-year guy. Just give me somebody that wants to put the work in. I'll get it right, even if it's a rookie. And we've seen the success in the secondary with coaching up them rookie corners and some of those younger guys, getting them ready to go and playing at a high level. So they're going to have a lot of confidence coming into the season. And the defense really did finish very strong last year. They should feel good about where they're at. Now, does any of that translate into this season? Honestly, when you look at it, you could say that from the outside because of statistics wise, but it really doesn't mean anything. It just means that those guys were able. Not a lot of those guys got hurt or injured, so they got a tremendous amount of experience. They played a lot together, which I love. I love when the guys are. We've always had the revolving corners and the safeties and these different lineups. You don't know who to count on, who to trust. These guys were pretty much together the entire year, and that's huge. And then you add on your draft pick at the safety position, and then you kind of work it from there. And Winfield's going to be a really nice addition. Extremely smart. Called a couple Minnesota games. I know his pops. He comes from the lineage, and he's got that gene pool, man. Those are guys you look upon, you want in your locker room. So that's a huge pick for him. So again, depth is a problem. You know what though? That's kind of across the league, and Jason Licht's going to have to do a good job as well. With the season and really the guys that are going to be available. Because they're, what are you going from 90 to 53, I believe, on Saturday. So there's no middle ground. So you better you're really leaning on your scouts and your staff and everybody to make sure that you can plug or maybe sign a guy to the roster, make those moves. So it's going to be chaos this weekend with those numbers and the way they're doing it without preseason. I feel bad because a lot of guys that earn the right and should be playing in the league aren't going to get that chance because of the fact that they weren't able to show their stuff in the preseason.
No, talking about defense, quickly becoming my favorite player on defense, Devin White. BA mentioned at the podium that they're going to use him on the outside. And I was surprised nobody kind of picked up on that or elaborated on that. What are your thoughts on that? That they're going to try and use Devin on the outside periodically. You said Todd very well. I've heard other people talk on podcasts about him, about how his defense is so complex and it's very multiple and just very exotic, and that last year was more of let's lay the foundation down, and that this year he's really going to open up the book. What are your thoughts on Devin White rushing from the outside and just Bowles opening up the book?
Yeah, complexity is something that, Todd's leaned on in the past. Obviously, I covered the Jets heavily when he was there and just watching what he could do. And he didn't have the kind of players or the juice maybe in New York that do the things that he wanted to do, especially being a head coach and kind of overseeing everything. But, he's not really a guy that wants to show too many things similarly over time. You're right. Last year was, get the guys in the right spot, let them learn and get that position down and, really just get the keys and the techniques that they have to know so that now when you can bring that flexibility in, move some guys, you ultimately can have that trust and accountability across all 11 players on defense. Now, in particular, Devin White. Now, I didn't hear him say that, but it makes a lot of sense because, listen, I think the one thing about Devin White is we didn't really get to see the best of Devin White. The guy had a knee brace on for 6 or 7 weeks. And then when he came back towards the end of the season, man, he was flying around. So he's a guy in particular really excited about, him. And, we always forget about Levante because, as much as he's doing, there's just limelight going on any guy. Shaq Barrett gets the limelight, but to me, Levante's still peaking, still playing at a high level. Those two guys, to me, are as a package are hard to really duplicate throughout the NFL. And another thing with Devin, he's got tremendous speed sideline to sideline. He's a very stout linebacker to be doing those things as well. Bringing him off the edge, bringing him in the A or B gaps, doing some cross dogs and stuff like that, keeping it fresh. What allows you to do that is allowing and have trust in the other guys and their responsibilities, whether it's a safety filling in the box. Winfield's going to be a guy that can do those kind of things now, where you have the flexibility of replacing people. So when you have that and you can pick it up quick, you can utilize guys in different spots. I mean, you can slide a JPP down inside for a couple snaps and all of a sudden, here comes Devin. That's a different look for a tackle. It's a different body to try to really go up against, especially the speed and the strength that he brings. So I want to see the complexities because you can't just stand around with Matt Ryans and the Drew Breeses and just expect to do, your base defense and sit back. They're going to carve you apart. It just can't be done. So being able to take that next step in the playbook, like you said, especially with a guy who may be your best player on the field, when he's healthy, and I'm excited to see, and Devin White, that's a huge upswing, and any way you can utilize him to make your defense better is key. But you're only going to see a lot of that if he trusts in the other players across the board, and pretty much everybody's back. So I think he's going to take that next step and feel that confidence level for guys to do little wrinkles and move to different spots as well.
Yeah, I mean, just saying anything about moving Devin White to the outside where he's usually in the inside, that does speak volumes to me on how this coaching staff trusts him already in his second year. And he spoke to how now he understands everything. He doesn't have to think so much. You've been there, that leap between first and second year where you're thinking about everything. As long as you're in the same system, now all of a sudden you can kind of go out there and just play ball, and everything comes to second nature. The system itself is kind of ingrained, and now you can have some fun. And he was flying around, like you said. I mean, there was that play that he chased down a Seahawk running back. Yeah. I mean, it was like 30 yards down the field, and he stripped him of the ball. And you're like, where did this bullet come out of? This guy was freaking a missile down the field. And you're like, holy shit, this is a linebacker. So to now be able to see him where he's not thinking, like, sky's the limit. I see a miniature version of Ray Lewis, and I'm super excited to see him work with a guy like Antonio Winfield, like you said. But speaking of trust, you're a tight end. We've had a tight end on this team, an O.J. Howard, who every year seemingly it's this guy's going to make the leap. This guy's going to make the leap. He's tight end one. And every year it seems that something happens, whether it's injuries, whether it's coaching staff not trusting him, whether it's just not making the plays, seeming like he's maybe not, into it or feeling left out, whatever it is. What do you see from O.J. Howard that's kind of held him back over the last couple of years, specifically last year where he seemed just like he was in the doghouse? When he got a chance to make a play, he would fumble the ball away. He would try to put it behind his back. It didn't seem like he was comfortable being an NFL player. As a tight end, what have you seen from that? And what do you think the problem has been? And does a guy like Gronk coming in kind of give him a more natural teacher in the sense that you're not listening to coaches now, you're listening to somebody who's kind of on your level who might be able to teach you in a different way?
Yeah, so, covered quite a bit of OJ coming out of college, got to know him a little bit. And, I had a pretty good relationship with him early in his career when he was kind of trying to soak up a lot of information. I think the one thing with OJ is, he had a little success early on. And, sometimes, that the guy that the work ethic and the things that you've done in your career and you kind of make it somewhere, you sometimes get, a little, for lack of a better terms, a little lackadaisical in your habits, right? Because once you get to the league and you come from a place like Alabama, a lot of those guys have, they peak out because they've seen it, they've trained it. The way they do it there is very similar to the NFL. And then you kind of tie in the fact that, last season, new system, I'm not quite sure he was all in mentally as far as understanding, knowing what to do, and being able to play fast. That's one thing I always tell rookies, and he wasn't a rookie, obviously, but you're always a rookie to the new system, is you gotta memorize and you gotta be a master of the playbook. When you're a master of the playbook early on, a guy like Godwin, you see a guy that can do it, it shows up and he can actually do what he did in college a lot faster on the field, and you see those results come out. I think an example of what happens is when you kind of get lost and you kind of have that window where you kind of like took a lull for a week and you try to catch up, all of a sudden you're behind and then you become the loss factor. And the one thing that OJ, you got to do your homework, is the coach that came in and took over the team is not the biggest hugger of tight ends and utilizing that position. It's just not something he leans on. And we heard a couple comments last year. Tight ends are blocking. That's their job, and that's what they need to do. Well, you can hear that, and then all of a sudden you're not getting into the plays, you're not doing the right thing, and all of a sudden you become a liability instead of an asset. You can't go out there and do those things. And I think OJ kind of fell into that last season. Now let's fast forward to this year. What will help or what will be the advantage? I think this. To have a guy like Gronkowski and O.J. Howard, and I'm going to put Cameron Brate in this situation, on the field together at any given time in the game is a huge problem for defenses. It limits your ability to do a lot of things when you have two tight end sets. I really think, O.J. and too, he was probably, he was worried about the contract and, wants to get re-signed and wants to get this big deal because, this and that. Well, those things come when you start doing these things properly and correctly, and you don't worry about those things. And that's kind of like the error when a lot of these players. It's all about, what they want to get instead of just letting the thing play out and still trying to be this, the player that can max out every season, every opportunity they can get. They just kind of get in this kind of level, and they just don't continue to rise. OJ's got a lot of room to rise. what the expectations for him, I think, this year is, if you can get OJ 35 catches in this system, in this offense, double that in any other season or any other place, as far as offensive standpoint. That's where his mindset should be. I want to see him and Gronk on the field a ton. If they're on the field a ton, that means we're just killing teams, because, everybody thinks that everybody thinks Brady's going to just lean on Gronk. That's not really how it works. Tom is like, look, he surveys the field. He knows right now where the ball's going. If you aren't in that spot and you don't make it, there's going to be, and I want to see this too throughout the season. I want to see him chewing somebody out, getting in somebody's face, and demanding that person to be in the right spot and be the right things. Because if that happens and everybody can be on that same page, everybody can have success. Now, is that going to help OJ in his contract if he only gets 35 catches? That clearly could be a mental thing that may make him feel like, well, okay, I had a great year at the team. If we end up having success, how does that make the team value me? Because I was in a situation where I was with the Jets, and, we were coming off the year going into my free agency year. I had a huge season, 40 plus catches, which was, higher during that time in 2000. I think the 3 season had 5 touchdown catches. And then going into the next year, when we almost got to the AFC Championship, we were leading the league in rushing with Curtis Martin. We were a run, play-action football team. Everybody's numbers were down. And all of a sudden, my numbers dipped to 18 catches from 44. But yet, I was blocking the crap out of guys, and we were rushing for all kinds of yards. And then I didn't get that big contract that I was looking for or wanted. And I can see in the back of his head how that could be a distraction. So hopefully this season, that's something he can kind of phase out and understand that his successes and the thing that he wants is still there. It's not going to be the bottom line number. If he has success in this system and can get in that 30, 35 catch range and be on the field with Gronk and start doing those things where they can complement each other, I mean, it's going to be hard to keep him around. And that's what you want. You want to be hard to be kept around so that you have some leverage with other teams. So hopefully OJ learned a little bit about that in the offseason. Hopefully it kind of pushes him to know that Gronk is here. He's the best in the game. And I got to fight to get more reps and fight to be on the field, whether it's by myself or also on the field with him. So it's going to be a huge challenge, and it will ultimately dictate his future here and his future anywhere else. So I just don't think he can come into this season with the same mindset that he had last year, because I think he was in the doghouse going into the offseason. Hopefully, again, I would have loved to talk to him. I would have loved to have that have that one-on-one with him and make him understand how the business and some of those things work and how you can kind of get around those things and really progress yourself as a player. But for OJ, he has to continue to work the position, blocking, pass running. He's got all the talent, but you got to you can't just say, I got it and I'm there. It's got to be a continued movement. I remember going to training camp last year, and I could tell immediately, just wasn't as crisp, wasn't as fast, didn't come off the ball the same as he did when he was a rookie. And so it was noticeable to me. Just wasn't that hungry kind of guy. You get complacent. It happens to a lot of guys. He's got to bounce back big, though, this season. As
a tight end, Anthony, how exciting is it to be on a team that has a loaded tight end room, basically a loaded wide receiver room, and then you have Tom Brady? And when you talk about 12 personnel and being able to go out there and basically at any given moment, you're either going to get matched up with the linebacker or you're going to block the shit out of the other, you're going to run the ball down their throat. Can you speak to how exciting it is to be in a scenario and an offensive scheme that just, it's basically pick your poison, and the tight ends are going to be an intricate part of that?
It's deadly. It's a problem. I mean, I'm telling you right now, it's a problem. And you talk about 12 personnel, which is 1 back, 2 tight ends. Attached is one thing, but what happens now? You're attached on 2 snaps, and all of a sudden now these guys can go to the slot. I mean, who's matching up with that?
You stop that.
It's impossible.
NFL, it isn't. Defenses are not built to stop athletic tight ends, let alone 2 of them. They're just not. They're not leaning on that anymore. And, when you have one, you can do some things. You can bracket him. You can kind of work some things. But with 2 guys outside that can run by at any point or catch the tough ball in the middle, and now also backs that can come out of the backfield, and then, of course, a 2 tight end look, maybe a tight, you get a 13 look as well. 3 tight ends could be in the game that can all literally either block or expand themselves. You could be in a short 3rd and 1 package. We called it U personnel with 3 tight ends and a fullback / tight end. And all of a sudden, with a snap of a finger, everybody spreads out, and you can have as athletic of a receiver as you do when you have Evans and Godwin there. And, you sit there and you think, yeah, it's unstoppable and it can't be stopped. Honestly, it truly is. I mean, and let's not get crazy on our offense and what we're calling. It's not going to take much. Okay. You're not going to get stuff. And we talked about this earlier. Tom's not going to have to sit there and diagnose and check out of a bunch of stuff because they're, manning up or they're going to, try to take somebody away. Good. Do that. They're not going to do it. Defense is hard. They're going to be soft. They're going to play zone. And he's just going to pick, man. Boom, boom, hit the holes. I mean, I can't – the third down conversion rate will – I don't know. You guys can do your research and we can come back on down the season. It's got to be the best it'll ever be this season because I just don't see a lot of ways unless they beat themselves on how they don't can't improve field position, where they start, all these kind of things, third down conversions, first down pass catch, pass first downs, getting big yardage. It should never be in the hole. I just don't see how they can do it unless they beat themselves. Now they're going to have, they're working around some things. They have a rookie lineman who we haven't got to with Tristan, but I love Tristan, man. I've covered games with Tristan when he was a freshman, and he wowed me then when nobody was even talking about it. I remember having a conversation, with Rex Hogan's the player personnel guy for the Jets when I have to go up there and do the games every year. I'm on the sidelines. I'm like, listen, I just came from Iowa. This is the guy. You want to get this guy. And I saw Thomas at Georgia, very good player, but athleticism, just smooth technique, gets it. Right side, piece of cake, in my opinion. He could do the left as a rookie too, but I'm excited to see him. So these are the pieces of this team that, that have to grow faster up front, but there shouldn't be many problems where this line can't block up or see extra blitzers. Teams are going to blitz us. There's no doubt they are. But it's not going to be as intricate as maybe some other teams might get when you're lacking some of those key positions in the skilled set area.
I mean, you have two. Sorry, Christian. You have two tight ends who are very good at blocking. And OJ, for all his shortcomings in the passing game and his focus, he's still a very good blocker. I mean, he's definitely better than Cameron Brate, and I love Cameron Brate, but he's just not a blocker. And to have guys like that, where at any moment you're going to load up on the run, cool, we're going to switch out. These guys will just flare out, boom. Now try and cover them with those guys that you loaded up to try to stop the run with. If you do it the other way around, we're just going to run it down your throat. Ronald Jones, here you go. Or Leonard Fournette, who knows? So having that kind of flexibility at every position, even Mike Evans and Godwin, they can play outside. They can play slot. You got a guy like Scooter now. I mean, it's just, I don't think I've ever seen an offense that has the ability to do all these things. And then you have the guy behind the center who is arguably the best at diagnosing these plays before the play is snapped, knowing what he's going to take advantage of, all these things, putting that all in one pot. You're like, holy shit, if these guys just don't fuck it up, there's no way that they don't just outperform what they did even last year. And they were a top 5 offense last year with a guy that threw 30 interceptions. So it's definitely something that we haven't ever seen here in Tampa. You would know, you play tight end here. As far as I remember, it wasn't the funnest offense when you were here, but the defense kind of ruled the day back then. But yeah, man, it's crazy. It's crazy what we're able to do with these guys now, and I'm hoping that OJ can finally match that physical presence that he has. Because when you look at him, you're like, holy shit! If this guy could just be angry and have that Gronk mindset all the time, unstoppable. He would be unstoppable on his own.
You're right. And another big key, and which is going to play a factor because you keep saying all the weapons and everything. Well, the cohesion between Byron and the play calling and being and feeling and feeding off your quarterback and making sure that, you just get it right. It's not going to be, you don't have to be digging into your playbook. You really have to find the beaters that are out there that give your quarterback the best opportunity to get the ball to the playmaker. And that's really, Tom Brady is a distributor. He does it better than anybody, and he beats you, like you said, it's pre-snap. He beats you pre-snap. And the only time there's trouble is, obviously pass rush or anything where, that's going to cause him to try to be mobile or have to move around. That's not his game, but that's okay. I mean, the best thing about what he did with New England, you probably couldn't name a lot of their starting offensive linemen. They had a great coach in Dante Scarnecchia, was probably one of the best in the game. I believe is retired now. But what they did was just they funneled everything to the outside so Tom could always step up. And it's not a tough concept to teach. And, Coach Gilbert's a good friend of mine, the offensive line coach, and I know he's really excited about the opportunity, but he also understands the pressures that come behind making sure you protect Tom and do the right thing. So, Tom's going to have his hand in a lot of things, not just because he's Tom Brady and, he wants to take things over. That's not it. It's like, okay, well, this is maybe how we did some things. How can that work? How can we mesh together? But that flow between coordinator and Tom, and you've seen that over the years with McDaniel and Tom. They had their ups and downs and they bumped heads, but they were always kind of on the same page because they kind of knew. This is a system where I saw last year where I just didn't really feel like, Byron and Winston were ever like on some type of the same page where it just looked consistent every week. With like, I know what you want, I know what you're looking at. It was just kind of like a cluster of big plays and a cluster of disasters and just like, okay, this is what it was. So, I think it's going to be a big learning experience for Byron this season. And, two very smart players / coach. And, of course, with Brady, that'll be a huge key for the season as well.
Mm-hmm.
To rewind a little bit, you were talking about Tristan Wirfs, and the kid is ultra talented. We already know that. But I think one of the best compliments you can give a offensive lineman, and Todd Bowles spoke about it on the podium the other day, listen, you're not hearing his name. And it's not like he's going against chumps, right? He's going against, and that's another part about preparation and getting him ready for the season. We may have not had preseason, but I mean, you're going against some dogs with JPP. He's hard to block. He's lanky. He's strong. He can play inside. You're going against Shaq Barrett with a lot of speed. I'm sure they're showing us some blitz looks. So, I mean, Sue at times, Golston. So he's been through the ringer a little bit in training camp, I would imagine. And if Bowles is saying, hey, he may not be popping or he may not be standing out, but you're not hearing his name, I'm perfectly fine with that, with what he's going against in camp. But, Anthony, I want to ask you, we're all excited about the tight ends. We're all excited about all the weapons. And it sounds crazy to say, and me and Sam are on the same page on this, but I think Mike Evans might have his biggest year ever.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I really do. I can recall, I don't know how many balls, and not taking shots at three, but when he finally was able to start connecting on the deep pass, it still wasn't quite in stride. And one of Mike's downfalls, or one of Mike's things that people call him out for, is his yak. There's not enough yak. There's not enough yak. Well, when you're hitting the guy, he's got a crazy wingspan, but when you're hitting the guy and he's making the spectacular catch and he's capable of it, congratulations, but hit him in stride. You can make it easy for the guy too, you know what I mean? I recall the Giants game. Matt Gay, my brother, he missed the game-winning kick, but if you remember that game or you remember that pass, if Jameis hits him in stride, he had the corner beat by like 5 yards.
Never comes down to the kick. If he hits him in stride, that's a touchdown.
Hit him in stride. So what are your thoughts on Mike Evans? He's down about 10, 15 pounds, I think. He looks leaner than he's ever looked. I think he's going to eat. Godwin's going to get his catches, but I think Mike's going to have, if it's even possible, a monster year from what he's had before. It sounds crazy because he's already a top 5 receiver, but I think he's going to go off.
Well, one thing about Mike, I thought going into the season and training, I didn't think he was in very good shape. I don't think he worked hard enough last training camp to start the season. And he still had a pretty good year. But I could see some things that just weren't quite where it should be to be that top-tier guy. And I think he knew it. I mean, it took him a while early on in the season, just, didn't feel like he was kind of that same guy. And now you're right. He is in better shape. There's a higher standard now that's going to be expected from him. And that's why I love a guy like Tom coming to the team, because, there's no room for, nobody wants to get cussed out, or, nobody wants Tom to get in his face. And these guys want to be the guy that he goes to. They want to impress him. And this was a huge offseason. I know Godwin's work ethic. That's never been a question. And he's going to be better than he was year after year, because that's just his mold. That's his MO. That's how he kind of did it in college, and that's where he's at. Mike, I mean, he was the guy. He's the guy that gets all the balls regardless. Whether he's beating the guy or not, he's going to get those opportunities. So do I see him taking strides as far as, the times we've seen him got past and not able to get the ball correctly and timing and get him down the field and and let him make those plays. I think those plays will be there. I'm not worried about Brady's arm. I think, he'll see those things. When they're even, he's leaving. That mentality is very simple, and Tom will get the ball up early and let him go catch it. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see it. And
I don't mean to interrupt, guys, but Devin White just posted a picture of Leonard Fournette in a Buccaneer uniform. What? Greg Allman just tweeted it out. What? I
just got a text.
Oh yeah, Ian Rappaport. The Bucs have signed. Oh, okay, Anthony. Your thoughts? We're breaking news. We have Leonard Fournette now. So hold on. Let me paint a picture for you, Anthony.
Yeah.
Let me paint a picture for you, and then I'll let you elaborate. You got 12. You got Gronk on one side, OJ on the other, Mike on the outside, Godwin on the other side, and you got Leonard Fournette, who caught 76 balls last year. You want to come light?
He won't catch that.
You want to stop that 250-pound running back? You want to go heavy? He can catch it too. I mean, that's just nasty.
Well, I'll say this: I expect to see a hungry look. We've seen him do some real special stuff in college. Okay, I don't like his kind of. I'm a little old school. I don't like the diva stuff too much unless you've actually gone out there and done it. Mm-hmm. But he has done some really good things that just, he's battling injuries. I mean, if he's healthy, it's just odd, though, that, Jacksonville just like, we don't want him anymore. I worry about those things, right? Because, I know Doug Marrone well enough to, he's not going to just throw away something in the garbage if he can maximize it. And he wasn't able to maximize what maybe he thought. So that is a worry, but whatever they give him, it's going to be a very incentive-laden contract. He's going to have to earn it. So there's really no risk for taking Fournette. It's all reward if it pans out. I mean, clearly the guy wants to get paid. He wants to be a top running back. And coming here, man, look, it's wide open. Like Ronald Jones, I like his progression, but, man, I'm not in 2 seconds going to feel bad if Fournette shows you something here in the next 14 days and say, you know what? We're going to give him some reps, but it's going to be hard for him to kind of jump in and pick things up and all that stuff. I mean, it's not going to you're going to see the best of Fournette, but man, I'll tell you, you talk about loaded. I just tweeted #loaded, retweeting, commented. You're running out of pictures and stuff and places to put faces that this team has. So again, and what it does is it's a little more pressure. Again, the coordinator, you really got to be just kind of like, how do we do this right? How do we get this so you don't want to get tied into I got to get the ball to this guy, I got to do all these things. You got to treat everybody, you call it Wood Indians. They're just, they're just jersey numbers, and you just go out there and that guy's open, he gets it. This guy's open, he gets it. That tailback's back there, but he can definitely help. And it's not a good look for McCoy, but I'll tell you the one thing McCoy brings that may or not be something that's his flexibility in the passing game is really good. He can make guys miss. And think about receivers and tight ends going out, the swing routes and the things underneath that are going to be open. Backs can go, 15 yards before maybe somebody gets on them. So, Tom's going to be like, hell, I'll dink and dunk all day if it's going to help us get somebody else open. So, again, you talk about those options. Something like a swing pass could be a 15-yard gain for this football team because of the way you have to play these guys defensively.
So we're going to go on an IR. Is he going to pull a hamstring or something? Is he going to get some sort of hangnail and he's just going to go on? You're on IR. We'll see you next year, because cutting a third-round pick, man.
I mean, dude, being a rookie, Christian, not getting a rookie minicamp, missing some time with being in the COVID response.
Third-round pick.
I get it. All of that stuff. He's not in the ideal scenario to get playing time right now. And he's playing catch-up.
He'll be an asset on special teams because I just, the way he played ball in college, very well respected with his coaching staff and teammates, hardest working guy on the team. He'll find a way to get reps, and it may not be the running back position at first, but let's not discount him. Was he the sexiest pick? Was he the best guy I thought that was available that they could have gotten? Could they have gotten some other guys? Absolutely. He wasn't really on my radar. He wasn't a guy that said, okay, I honestly thought that he could have got picked later and you still could have gotten him. But with that being said, in this business, if you get him in the third round, you got to use him for something. you're not going to cut him. He's not going to be a cuttable player because his work ethic is going to rise above anything as far as the depth chart's concerned. So he'll be on special teams. He'll be a contributor that way. And that's he's a pretty good player to say, okay, well, he's going to be a special teams player. He'll be like an upper end guy for that. So they'll find a way to use him. But when you're talking about McCoy or you're talking about, Ronald Jones, his rep and how those things dip in, I mean, I like it. It pushes guys. Competition is good. I think that's one thing BA likes. And like I said, the contract to me is not going to be something that is going to be like, okay, we got to get this guy the ball because he's making $10 million. That's not the way it's going to fly. So, and he'll be, hopefully he's good in protection as well. Because, if we can get an extra body or something, that would be helpful.
There's also something to say as it relates to McCoy. Last year, Andy Reid gave up on him once he just couldn't hold on to that ball. When it became a problem, tucking it away and fumbling it and giving it away, Andy Reid basically moved on from him. If that problem does follow McCoy to the red and pewter, it's good to have a guy that you can now kind of plug right in and be like, all right, we don't have to worry about this guy's feelings because we've got another guy behind him anyway. So, I worry. Like I'm like you, man. I don't like the diva, the antics, the things that came with what Fournette did in Jacksonville. It might have been, a lot of guys did that there though. So it might just be one of those things where the culture there, the way the organization was run, guys are just like, I don't want to be here. And I'm not the only one that doesn't want to be here. So maybe some of that is that, and it's not so much their personalities, because you really didn't hear anything about that when he was coming out of LSU. You didn't hear that about all those guys that wanted out of Jacksonville. Even when they were successful, they were like, yo, man, get me out of here. There's something happening there. So maybe that doesn't follow him here, and there's nothing to worry about with that kind of thing. Because I'm like you. I'm not interested in those guys. I mean, if you don't get the ball 20 times a game, are you going to make a huge stink in the locker room? Are you going to get in Byron's face on the sideline? I'm not interested in that shit. And having a guy like Tom obviously can kind of nip some of that in the bud, because that expectation, that respect that you give him as a father, or you're just not going to do that in his locker room. But sometimes that doesn't matter either at the end of the day too. So we'll see how it works. I'm low key. I'm hyped about having Leonard Fournette because I do love it.
I'm hyped as well. And
one thing that Fournette brings you is downhill. Mm-hmm. He's a downhill runner. He's not going to miss much, right? Not a lot of wiggle. He's going to hit the hole. So if there's a crack, he won't miss it. And then sky's the limit. So we haven't had a back like that in a while for this team. So that'll be interesting to see.
From a toxicity standpoint, and we talked about it before you came on, Anthony. I when he got released, and it's a Bucs life. You're on Bucs Twitter. Every time somebody gets released, we should sign him. We should sign him. Everybody runs to sign him.
It keeps happening this year, though. Every time someone gets cut,
but this year they're actually doing it.
It keeps happening.
But when he initially got released, I was like, nah, I don't want a part of it because of the diva stuff and the toxicity in the locker room. I was like, I just don't want a part of it. But then, after talking to Sam about it, I just don't see it. You can speak to it. You've been in the locker room, with guys like Levante and Devin and JPP, who takes no crap from nobody, and Mike Evans and Tom Brady. I named 4 players before I even got to Brady. I don't know, man. I can't see him coming in with the diva stuff. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that. With that type of leadership in there, they're going to shut that down quickly.
I agree. I think that there is going to be that respect of Tom. And I think BA brings that to the table as well. I don't really think that's a problem. But what it does bring us back to, guys, what we were originally talking about, Sam, where we were saying about the depth on defense. Here we go. Another dollar spent on offense. From a fan's perspective, it's juicy, right? It's like, okay, the eye candy. You go into the club and the one that pops, that's it. Let's juice it up. But you're right. Is defense okay? I just want to make sure, because I hate to have a sick offense, but we got to score 35 points a game because the defensive end and the Will Backer's hurt, or something like that. I don't wish any injuries, but it happens. Guys get hurt. So, look, if they don't, things are good. It's gravy. But if they do, man, like, what's out there? You're talking about, there's not a lot of bodies out there that can step in and fill in for the guys that you have starting. So, but if those guys, the front 4 in particular, Villa was playing at a Pro Bowl level towards the end of the season. Nobody really talked to him about him like that. And then the defensive ends, I mean, man, it's a scary proposition, man. It's kind of like the perfect storm right now. Hopefully the history that we've seen with the Bucs, when, you know, these things have happened, the storm works in the favor of the organization and the team. So it just adds for more excitement, man. I mean, that, you know, you can't name a lot of teams where you just randomly turn them on the TV and you're not a fan of them, but you could probably name, you know, 9 or 10 of their starters, right? It's odd, especially in the NFL. Like, people are going to turn on the Bucs and like, oh yeah, I know him. I mean, these are household names now, man. This team is in the forefront of the national landscape. They will be talked about, and you know how this is. When you are, what do people want? They want to tear you down. They're looking for anything negative that'll happen. And, you know, in the past, the Bucs have been able to give them that. So I'm hoping that things change and, you know, get off to a good start. That's the key, man. It's been a long time since I've been covering the Bucs and since we got off to a good start. And I like to see that happen this season. It's not easy week 1, but it's doable. That's for sure.
I think they kick the Saints' ass in week 1. I think they fuck them up. Honestly.
Not just...
I'm not scared. I have no reason.
I'm a little more reserved when it comes to
I don't even think it'd be the offense. I really just think the defense is going to go in there and just destroy Drew Brees, because, again, I know he's been there and those guys are, you know, they've been together for a while, but still, there's something to be said about having real live preseason reps and getting hit and pushed around, and that's going to favor the defense across the league. So I feel like our offense can maybe deal with it, and we can just punch Drew Brees in the mouth a couple more times, and they'll punch Tom Brady in the mouth, and we get away with the victory, 1-0, boom, easy. But listen, Anthony, you played in New York. You played for the Jets, all right? So I expect you to know the correct answer on on these 2 questions that we have, all right? So listen.
And you brought it up, Anthony, because you said juicy. You said juicy, bro.
You said juicy. It came up. So you played in New York, all right? So if anybody's going to know this, it's got to be you. New York, obviously Buffalo's not that far. You didn't play for the Bills, but you guys banged head a couple times, I'm sure, because you guys were in the same division. So when you're eating a wing, Anthony, are you eating that wing dry rub? Or are you eating it covered in sauces? There's only one right answer. This is a big deal on our show.
Well, this to me is kind of the standard for wings, in my opinion. But when I go, I'm mild. So mild's kind of like the go-to starting point for wings. So when I go in, I get the starting point wing, which is mild sauce. So I like heat, but I don't like a ton of it. So to me, that's where wings began with mild. That was like where everything started. So I'm back. That's where I'm at, the beginning.
I don't like it wet, juicy.
I don't go like random teriyaki / barbecue mix, sweet onion, garlic, all that stuff that, you know, Buffalo Wild Wings shows you on their menu. I never even get my eyeballs on that. So I think that's the right answer. They're not saturated. Now dry, I gotta have a little something on it. Dry is, you know, I gotta be able to I'm a fast eater. If I'm choking on a dry, you know, some dry wings or rub or something like that, that's a problem. So I'm mild every time. So I'm right where the starting point is.
Here's all right. The more important question of the two.
Yeah, this is the big one, bro. I mean, this is what people tune in.
Deal breaker one, bro. This is serious stuff.
It's a big deal. Christian, you gotta.
If you're having those wings sauced, are you dipping them in blue cheese or ranch?
1,000% ranch. Blue cheese.
No.
Blue cheese. Blue cheese. You guys are a lot younger. You guys are younger than me. Blue cheese is like, get out of here, man. No way.
Anthony, do you even know that when wings were invented, the guy only had blue cheese to dip them in? The ranch thing came about when Pizza Hut decided they were going to start fucking selling wings to little children who like ketchup on their mac and cheese. And you're telling me you dip your wings in ranch?
A tub of it, yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, you're going to make a lot of people happy on Twitter.
Oh, no.
Make a lot of people happy.
That's not even allowed in my home.
Blue cheese. We're blue cheese gang here.
Oh, but hashtag ranch, yeah.
No, we're original, man.
That was for you. Trevor Sycamore. We've been battling him for a while. He's all about the ranch, too. Yeah.
Good. There we go. That's my guy. See, we got something in common now. There it is.
So, Anthony, could I coax you into giving us a season prediction, or are you going to save that for the radio? What can you give us a prediction? What do you think? What do you think they do this year?
I think anything less than 10 games is a failure. You know, it's an ultimate debacle. I mean, It's not good. I see 11. 11 would be the number that I feel like this team is capable of getting, gets them into the playoffs securely. And from there, they should be peaking. I mean, if you got 11 wins, you should be peaking at the right time. And, now you got to make the push. Getting a playoff game is nice, and people are comfortable maybe with that. But let's be honest, guys, that there's not a lot of time for Brady. The moves that they're making, signing Fournette, they're bringing a lot of bodies in that, are saying, look, man, it's do or die. It's do or die. So puts a lot of stress on coaches to get these guys going, puts a lot of stress on the continuity happening early between players and coaches, and it puts a lot of stress on the players to go out there and execute and perform. And look, this is why you get paid all that money. I mean, this is your job. So the standard's set, man. I mean, you bring in the best player in the NFL history, arguably, but you also bring in a standard that's expected every year, at least when Tom's been playing, that you got to play at. And he don't care if you're playing with a bunch of misfits. He expects to go to the Super Bowl every season. If he doesn't, it's a failure to him. I don't know. Guys haven't had that feeling. Guys are like, they don't. Can they take the next step where it's an expectation level and they know they're going to get there with a guy like Brady? That's his mentality. Like anything else is a failure. Less than that, everybody else just getting to the playoffs or winning division. That's like a huge deal because none of these players have experienced that. So I don't worry about those things, but man, crucial moments, crucial times, there's not going to be too many that Tom hasn't been in that he can't handle. Can we lean on these other guys now to say, okay, these moments are coming. These defining catches, these defining protections and run opportunities are coming this year. Do they take the jump and take the next step and become the team that everyone desires them to be? We've been in years where on paper, we felt really good about our football team. And it's just, here comes the same old Bucs. This is a completely different animal now. That's a real deal thing that, to me, causes a lot of problems for the division, for the conference, and for the league. So if they can hit the ground running and go fast and get some early wins, man, hell, they could go 12, 13 wins this year. But 10 or anything, if they get 10, I'll be kind of disappointed. 11 to me is like the starting point. Like, get those 11 wins. And, man, like, this is exactly where they need to be.
I see 14, but that's just me.
Oh, God.
The contract details came out. 1 year deal, max value of 3.5, $2 million base salary that's heavy on incentives based on rush yards and playtime.
It's a no-lose deal for the Bucs.
Yep.
They can gain everything here. So, again, it's an easy sign. It really is. What can they get and see out of him in the next, what do we got? How many days left? 12 days, 11 days left. So, I don't know if he'll be up to speed or ready to go. He'll be tested mentally, which will be big. And, if he's a smart dude and can pick things up, I mean, hell, let's give him the rock. I mean, let's hand the ball off, let him go downhill and make some plays.
Yeah, got the guys up front that can finally block for a guy like that and who can at least help him out too. Anthony, before you leave us, do you have any extremely weird or funny stories as it relates to you possibly crossing paths with Bruce?
Bruce Arians?
Yeah.
You know what? Not really. Bruce, I know Bruce a little bit. Obviously, we know each other just from playing against each other. But, I never really had an experience. I do some things for NFL Legends community. So Arizona was one of my teams that I went to. So I was out there when he was coaching in Arizona. And we had a good conversation. When I played out there, Larry was really the last piece left that was still there when I visited Fitzy. And so, went there, hung out at practice. And, we had some good interaction there, but, I haven't really had any real connecting stories with him that, we're like, okay, this is something memorable. But, I know a lot about him just because I know a lot of players that played with him and look, he's kind of what the Bucs need in a coach. The only thing I wish was he actually called the plays last year. I thought that was kind of like a big thing for me that I thought was important, but listen, it is what it is. And, and it kind of, the numbers were there, but we just didn't, get the wins. But, I don't have anything crazy about him in particular, no.
All right, it was worth asking. So every one of the people that we deal with, from a player or a media standpoint, they've always got some crazy, story of when they cross paths with Bruce. I mean, we had Michael Silver on last, and he has all these stories of when they meet up at the combine, and they always have a drink together, and all the craziness that ensues after that. It just Mike, I mean, if you know anything about Michael Silver, that guy's just full of stories anyway, and he's just an amazing person to listen to. But we had fun hanging out with you, man. That you were crazy knowledgeable. Having a former tight end, NFL player with that, you give a totally different perspective. If you guys don't follow Anthony on Twitter, obviously his Twitter handle will be under his name. Definitely follow him. You said you're going to do some cool things coming up. You're going to kind of expand a little bit what you do. Give you a couple minutes to talk about that.
Yeah, so, you can follow me on Twitter, Anthony_Becht, and going to make some big announcements. I've been working really hard here on learning a lot of the digital intricacies of, the platforms that I could take advantage of. So, I did have a podcast the last 2 years called Spit and Fire that is going to be rebranded. And I used to talk about college, NFL, Bucs, and Jets all wrapped in one. A little peek is I'm going to be more exclusive with its own body. So multiple things now will come out where I'll be able to, instead of climbing different things, I'll be exclusive here with the Bucs. I'll be exclusive here with Jets. And then I'm going to do a big picture type of show, digital show that I'm excited that I'm piecing together. So all this stuff will be available to see or know about on my Twitter site. If people are on Facebook, the Anthony Becht. I have Instagram, Anthony Becht. Just you can look at those things. But those announcements will come. The launching date for these things will be September 14th. I'd like to have it all cranking out after that first weekend of college, which is mainly when most of the big conferences start. And then, of course, the NFL is that week as well. So I'm excited about those things. I'll clearly be missing calling college games. But, guys, the landscape has changed. ESPN lost about 150 games. The majority of the play-by-play and color commentators are literally calling the game at their houses during the season, which is incredibly crazy and going to be an undertaking within itself to do that. So those things will come back to me, I'm sure, down the road. But right now, man, you guys are doing it. You create content, bring something that a perspective that people can't get day to day. And I feel like I have a lot of things that I can offer on the side. I picked up a new hobby in the pandemic. Not that hopefully I'm not taking up any more time, but it just came to me. I got into the baseball card collecting. I'm a good friend with Gary V, and he's been pretty heavy talking baseball cards, basketball cards, and he's been sending me some text about what's hot, what's coming, and what I should lean on. I haven't really told anybody this, but I have a secret under the radar Twitter handle in the baseball card collecting world. I also have an anonymous e-card e-store that I don't use under my platform, that I just tell people that, look, I'm a professional athlete that loves cards, but they had no idea who it is. And I'm trying to grow it organically. So I'm not going to let you know the handles or stuff. Eventually I'm going to come out and I'm just going to say, okay, this is who I've been doing this. But it's been interesting to be that behind the platform of something where people don't exactly know exactly who or what you are, and you engage differently with people. And I think it's been cool. So I dove into that in the pandemic. Me and my son, we had about 150,000 baseball, football, basketball cards in a storage unit for 10 years. And I was like, you know what? We should probably start thumbing through this stuff and see what's going on. And we didn't throw away. We gave away about 148,000 of them, and we kept 2,000. And then we narrowed that down to like anything that's worth 100 or more, 50 to 100, and then 30 to 100 or 30 to 50. And then I'm actually around all this stuff in my office. I got boxes of, Magic Johnson cards here. Like Magic's doing the documentary. So like I got a bunch of my Magic stuff. You can see that I'm getting ready to put on the East site and get that going. We all saw what Jordan did when Jordan's documentary came out, that kind of started the rage in cards. So I've been kind of having some fun with that. Clearly, I got to, do my other stuff now that sports are actually coming back. But that's been a little hobby of mine that I've jumped into and kind of had some fun with during the pandemic.
Sounds pretty damn cool. I mean, I used
You're
to have
still
a
doing the
bunch of
Bucs
those
radio stuff, right? You're still gonna be doing that this year?
So I'll have my 2 segments during the season. Mondays at 8 a.m. with T. Kraz and Ronnie, and then Wednesdays, I believe it's at 12:30. I'll be doing that with Ian and Ron, and then of course, and then on the other side, if your fan base is mixed and you got some New Yorkers, I'll be doing all the Jets pre and post digital platforms for them, and then also jumping into their radio broadcast for the pre and post game as well. So, and again, that'll be done right from my home. Much different now. They're going to be doing things a lot differently from that side. So it allows me to kind of do all those things right from the spot you see me now.
Sweet, man. We're going to have you on here maybe when we're like 7-0, 8-1, something like that. So thanks for hanging out, Anthony. Like I said, man, awesome hanging out with you. I know you and I butt heads on Twitter sometimes, but you're still freaking knowledgeable, bro.
I never block anybody. I always answer. I'm never rude, and I never get crazy. A lot of my colleagues, they just, for some reason, it bothers them. I mean, I believe in the things I see, and and the things that in this game that I'm very comfortable with, and that's what it is. But I'm all about. I love to talk and have banter, and have, that's what Twitter's for. It gives you guys a platform to potentially talk and say something to somebody and maybe get a response. And you got one from it. Hey, it's what it is. I mean, that's what it's all about, man. That's what's great about social media in a positive sense. It also has a lot of negatives that we all know about as well. But man, it's cool to interact with fans that have at least over 100 or at least I'll get 75 followers. The guys that are the bothersome ones are just you got 14 guys following you and you don't even have a picture in your avatar. That's a tough one right there for me to kind of get excited about. But
yeah, those Twitter egg guys.
You guys got a couple of followers, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch up with you again, like I said, and this was awesome. And as always, go Bucs!